Ah yes, grab your pitchforks everyone. The Dolphin Man finally has a bad opinion on a quote-unquote popular manga title. Unsubscribe! He's saying that Phantom Seer should have been cancelled. Let's cancel him instead. Like the title suggests, I think Phantom Seer should have ended but earlier. And I say that because if they were going to end the series, then they shouldn't have started a more interesting and horror-filled arc just for us to get hooked and be disappointed. Hello everyone, my name is Axel Ablaze, and truth be told, I share the same disappointment that many of you do over the cancellation of Phantom Seer. I think it was starting to gain some traction with its latest arc, but the axe still came swinging down. But why? What led up to this? In today's video, I'm going to go over my findings to paint a better picture for Phantom Seer's cancellation. And before going too far in, if you're not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button for more Dolphin Man goodness. I've also got links to my Twitter and Discord server down in the description for those that want to keep up with me outside of YouTube. With that out of the way, let's jump into it. Let's begin with a discussion on numbers, because this is probably the easiest thing to discuss. At the present time, there are 100,000 copies total of volumes 1 and 2 of Phantom Seer out in circulation. Big number, right? But the actual number sold is around 45,000. And that's not great to see 55,000 copies just sitting on store shelves not being bought. In all honesty, I'm confused by the size of the reprints for this series. The initial print run of the first volume sold out in December, but I don't know what prompted them to have such big reprint numbers and/or who prompted it. Either way, it doesn't look good to only sell half of your stock, even if the numbers sold were decent. And yes, the numbers were decent for Phantom Seer. Maybe not big numbers like some of the Jump veterans, but still decent. Selling about 20,000 copies a piece for the first 2 volumes is solid for a non-veteran series. And yes, I'm aware that Matsura technically isn't a rookie since he was previously published in Jump, but Tokyo Shinobi Squad lasted for a shorter time than Phantom Seer did. So where do these sales numbers rank compared to other series, especially the ones people complain about like Cop and Dolphin, Roboco, Magu-chan, and High School Family? I did a bit of digging and found some of the first week Oricon numbers for these titles and more. And to be fair, I need to give a baseline comparison for Phantom Seer. For Volume 1, Phantom Seer sold 8,675 copies in its first week, and for Volume 2, Phantom Seer sold 13,858 in its first week. Cop and Dolphin Volume 1 sold 7,307 copies in its first week, Volumes 2 sold 6,550, and Volume 3 sold 3,034. Me and Roboco Volume 1 sold 8,637 in its first week, Volume 2 sold 10,804 in its first week, and Volume 3 sold 5,565. God of Destruction Magu-chan Volume 1 sold 8,400 copies in its first week, and Volume 2 sold 9,500. Last but yes, least is High School Family. Its first volume sold 3,636 copies in its first week. In comparison to these other series, yes, Phantom Seer was selling a bit better, at least based on the first and sometimes second weeks that its new volumes would go on sale. But here's the thing. Numbers after that aren't as easy to distinguish because Jump doesn't release sales numbers unless we're talking big numbers. And Oricon and Shoseki numbers really don't get counted once you drop far enough down the sales charts. It's not impossible to say that some of these other series continue to sell well after the fact, especially if some had smaller print runs to start or people bought up other volumes first. That's all hypothetical, but worth considering. One such example is Hard-Boiled Cop and Dolphin. According to its new editor, around the start of the month of April, its first 2 volumes were slated for reprints. Granted, this could be to put more copies out in the wild before it's most likely getting axed in about 10 weeks from this video, but still, more copies are being put out there. But what about a series in the same kind of lane? What about Ayakashi Triangle, for instance? And before anyone says anything, yes, Ayakashi is an ichi manga by a veteran mangaka. I know, but at its core, it's still an Exorcist manga. In drastic comparison, the first 2 volumes have already sold over 200,000 copies as of February. That's right, 6 digits. I knew Ayakashi Triangle was selling at a decent rate, but that's pretty damn impressive. And obviously I'm not going to get into the giant sales numbers of Jujutsu Kaisen, but that's another Jump manga in this same Exorcist space as Phantom Seer. And while that can be seen as unfair to compare Phantom Seer to these two manga, it's closer to an apples to apples argument than comparing it to a gag or gag adjacent series. Now, the next set of quote unquote numbers aren't so cut and dry, and that's the table of contents. First things first here, placement in the TOC does not equate to ranking. It's not a one-for-one thing like Bakuman would like you to believe. However, it is still important to note that the vast majority of series that get axed are ones that can be found in the last few slots of the magazine's TOC. There are exceptions to the rule, but it's not a given. So here's the thing. For every issue that Phantom Seer was in this year, including its final issue, Phantom Seer was in the bottom 3 every time except for one. That was the combined 5-6 issue where it just barely escaped the bottom 3 that was at the time filled with Our Blood Oath, A Gravity Boys, and Mori King. All 3 of which would be ending in that issue of Jump and the next 2. But how does that compare to the other series in the magazine, not including the 3 axe titles I mentioned? Let's broaden how we score things a bit here. If a title made the cover, was ranked in the top 3, or received a color page in an issue, I gave it 1 point. If it was in the bottom 3, I subtracted a point. The scores ended up looking like this. Out of 17 issues so far this year, Jujutsu Kaisen had the most points with 14. One Piece and Dr. Stone tied for second with 13, My Hero Academia was fourth with 12. We see a drop-off going down to 5th place with Mashal having 7 points. There was a 3-way tie for 6. With 6 points each, we had Black Clover, Mission Yozakura Family, and surprisingly, Elusive Samurai. Sakamoto Days and Me and Roboco tied for 9th place with 4 points apiece. We had another 3-way tie for 11th place between Undead Unluck, Magu-chan, and Witch Watch, all with 3 points. Kowloon's Ball Parade came in 14th with 2 points. I Tell C would have had 2 points as well, but it made the bottom 3 in the latest issue, taking away one of its 2 points and putting it in 15th. Past here we get in the negatives. Ayakashi Triangle came in 16th with a single negative point. A color page canceled out one of its 2 bottom 3 placements. High School Family comes in 17th with negative 4 points. Cop and Dolphin came in 18th with negative 6 points. Build King, the latest series to be axed, had negative 11 points, putting it in 19th. And last but sadly least was Phantom Seer coming in dead last with negative 15 points. Now again, low placement in the magazine isn't a guaranteed 1-for-1 with popularity, but the popular series do get put on the covers, make the top 3 placements in the magazine, and get color pages. Fact of the matter is that Phantom Seer received none of these in the 16 issues it was printed in the 2021 run of Jump. Same thing happened with Build King despite being done by a Jump veteran. It's when you look at these magazine numbers that you see a very different picture compared to physical volume sales. High School Family and Cop and Dolphin were in the bottom 3 a few times this year, but Phantom Seer was in the bottom 3 almost 3 times as much. And believe it or not, Magu-chan and Me and Roboco both had 1 week where they were in the top 3. Magu had 2 color pages on top of that, and Roboco had 3. Phantom Seer didn't just have older peers in the magazine to look out for either. Sakamoto Days and Elusive Samurai have both been doing well and both earned 4 points this year. Elusive Samurai technically had 6, but every new series receives a cover page in its debut issue and then a color page in the second issue. Witch Watch has already received a second color page as well. All of these factors did not help Phantom Seer's case. One last thing to consider with the magazine and the popularity of series is this. The Jump survey cards that go with every copy of the magazine only allow people to rank their top 3 series from a given week. This is another sticking point for Phantom Seer compared to some of the other manga with different genres. More often than not, the people that are fans of Phantom Seer are also fans of some of the other battle shonen series in the magazine. Given the crazy heights some of these other series have been experiencing, it's not uncommon for someone to put those series in their top 3 rankings while leaving off Phantom Seer. In comparison, someone that likes the more slice of life or gag content is likely to vote for series like Magu, Roboco, and even High School Family. The last thing that I want to talk about is going to be entirely subjective, so I want to get that warning out of the way. In my opinion, Phantom Seer's story was incredibly average leading up to the Conceiving Hands arc, and that's part of the reason for me saying that Phantom Seer should have ended earlier, especially in a manga world where exorcism-based stories are a dime a dozen. It's important for me to clarify that the story was the part that was average, not the art. The art was absolutely phenomenal and some of the best in the magazine, but art can only carry you so far. Everything leading up to the first Conceiving Hand was incredibly standard exorcism manga content. On top of that, we had a run-in with what could be considered the final villain of the series in chapter 11. For those that don't necessarily catch on to flags like this, let me explain. When certain manga are on a trajectory toward getting axed early in their run, many of them will reveal the final villain as a way to wrap things up, or to try and generate some interest to keep the axe from swinging down. That's not to say that a final villain showing up within the first 20 chapters is always a sign of ending. Sometimes they're just that woven into the plot. Muzan from Demon Slayer and the Millennium Earl from D. Gray Man are examples of this. For a manga like Hellwarden Higuma, though, another Exorcist manga from Jump back in 2019, it was not a good sign to see the main character facing what would normally be his endgame enemy toward the end of its 20-chapter run. That was a big flag that the end was coming, and before we got the Conceiving Hand arc in Phantom Seer, I honestly thought that Phantom Seer was going to end because my mind was linking it to Hellwarden Higuma. The truly unfortunate thing for Phantom Seer is that the Conceiving Hand arc was looking like the rebound the series needed to get things back on track and keep it going in the magazine. But that just wasn't the case. The damage had already been done and the axe came swinging down on the series, and if I'm being honest with myself, I would have been less upset with Phantom Seer ending if it had ended 10 chapters earlier. If it had ended earlier, I wouldn't have been as invested as I was with the Conceiving Hand arc, and I think the same can be said for a lot of people. I'm absolutely bummed out that Kento Matsura's talents have been cut short yet again by Jump, but at the end of the day, I can understand where they're coming from. From an editorial viewpoint, there were reasons for its cancellation, and after looking through the data, it does make sense. That doesn't mean it hurts any less if Phantom Seer got axed. I do legitimately feel bad for anyone that was really hurt by its ending. We're at a point in time where we are now getting everything from Weekly Shonen Jump simul-published in the West. This isn't like the old days where they curated through the axed newbies and only showed us the popular stuff. We now get to see new series every 10 weeks, while a handful of already established series get cut. There will be more manga in the future that get printed, and people will enjoy only for them to be axed. So, how do we impact this? In the West, the best way that we can support the series we like is to support the official release. And I'm not necessarily talking physicals here. If you're not reading Weekly Shonen Jump chapters from either the Viz Media app or the Jump Plus app, then you're not doing your favorite series any favors. I don't know how much Western Jump Plus numbers affect whether or not series end in the magazine, but it sure as hell looks a lot better if the numbers are big. By reading a readily accessible Jump series on a pirating site, you're doing nothing to contribute to the series, and that only hurts the series. Pirating sites are there for the series that don't get simul-published or don't get physical releases in the West. When Jump is giving you the 3 latest chapters of their weekly series for free, you don't have an excuse to pirate them. I get that it's frustrating here in the West that we don't get to have as much of a voice on our favorite series from Japan. I do. But when we are given these options to support them, and we don't take them, that only hurts the manga creators. But with that being said, I'm going to take a step off of my soapbox here and toss some questions at you guys. How do you feel about the cancellation of Phantom Seer? After being presented with the numbers, do you agree that it should have been canceled, or no? Like me, would you have been less upset had the series ended earlier than when it did? I want to hear about all of this and everything else down in the comments down below. As always, big thank you to everyone that made it this far into the video. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more videos like this in the future, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed already, it would be amazing if you hit that subscribe button. And once again, if you want to keep up with what I do outside of YouTube, feel free to follow me on Twitter or join my Discord server. Links to both are down in the description. But for now, my name is Axel Blaze, and yes, I know it's only a matter of time until Cop and Dolphin gets X2. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but for now, Orpheus lives! Bye-bye, everybody.